I run pools. We make sure our swimming instructors have good training in spotting the signs of child abuse because we see so much more of your kid's body than most other folks in their lives. Bathing suits don't do much to cover up suspicious bruising, honestly. The fact that most stuff we deal with causes cancer. Generally, you can be quite safe as a chemist, but it's the long-term exposure that's an issue. Being somewhat not safe over time causes lots of issues. Sure, you always hear of someone who got a liter of solvent to the face, or got a toxic powder on their arm and was fine, but it's the sum of all your exposures, not the day-to-day stuff that kills you. Be smart and be safe, wear gloves, wear a lab coat, don't breath anything in, and work in a fume hood with everything. The fact that human organs are shipped like regular packages at FedEx. I see them almost every day. It's most a company called CryoLife, I think. It's for organ donation. But we are very professional and careful with these packages in particular for obvious reasons. Sometimes when we deliver a stillborn baby that passed a while ago, the head may come off in delivery. Fortunately it usually doesn't. The smell of burning human flesh. I'm an industrial welder and occasionally have a molten blob of steel land on exposed skin. We don't mention it outside of work because of obvious reasons. The amount of suicide among doctors. Physicians have among the highest rates of suicide worldwide, but I didn't understand how significant it was until I was in the field. I assumed it wasn't a big issue. The career seemed great with prestige, high job security and income. And it is great, but I didn't know about working 60 days in a row, operating after being awake for 72 hours on call, cutthroat competition and training bottlenecks, the constant expectation and pressure to be the best and know-it-all from seniors and patients alike, the harassment and bullying from colleges that eat their young. Now that I'm working in hospital networks, I don't go more than a couple of months without hearing about another doctor who attempted or committed suicide. There is more open discussion about the crisis, but most remains unspoken. Many doctors in my country won't disclose or seek help for their mental health problems out of fear they'll be reported and have restrictions on their license. And if you are taken to hospital for the suicide attempt, the field is small enough that your colleagues and friends will hear about it, no matter how much staff maintain confidentiality. I visited a friend in NICU who attempted suicide, and he was mortified that he had been transported to the hospital he was employed in. Everyone knew and he moved across the country. And you hear about funerals for an untimely passing of a 30-something-year-old doctor, while nobody talks about how or why they died. We are very uncomfortable talking about suicide. I'm a mailman, and sometimes people's houses just creep me out. Sometimes you walk up to a really run-down place with their mailbox hanging sideways and you just get a bad feeling like bad things happen here. It's also creepy how bad some people's houses smell, and I can smell that shit from outside. If you're a hoarder with 20 cats, I can smell all the cat piss and sweet rotting smell as soon as I go up your walkway. Also, delivering mail to sketchy businesses that are clearly fronts for something else is never really fun, can make you pretty uneasy. The number of deaths and injuries. Industrial maintenance isn't a really safe career path. I personally know 4 people that have been seriously injured and 2 that were killed on the job. I drive trains. Statistically speaking, a driver in my country will drive over 2 humans during a career. What really haunts you is the sound. It's a loud thud. IT security at a lot of places is a joke. You'd be horrified how, as some high-profile, hold a lot of your personal data, there isn't really an emphasis on security. Sure, they do just enough, but it's more aimed at protecting their image and whatnot. That your data, as a teacher, we know, but don't talk about it, how many of our kids have very fucked up lives. We know which kids have emotionally abusive siblings. We know which kids have no friends. We know which kids' parents pay no attention to their accomplishments. When it's something that crosses the line, sexual abuse, unsafe living conditions, etc., we will report it to CPS. Hell, as far as I am aware, we are required to in every state, certainly are in mine. But, there are so many horrible, horrifying things that kids have to go through that don't cross the line into reportable territory. For example, one of my students 2 years ago was the only boy out of 5 children. His mother, her husband having walked out after baby number 5 was born, took all of her aggression out on my student. It was never abusive, to our knowledge. But, he confided in me that his mother just didn't care about him. Any accomplishment of his sisters was praised and celebrated. His accomplishments? Ignored. The kid was one of the sweetest boys I have ever taught. All he wanted was to make his mother proud of him. She couldn't have cared less though, because to her he was just a reminder of the man who left her. The kid was emotionally neglected and starved for positive attention. We also know about the kids who have had seriously fucked up shit happen to them: rape, molestation, severe physical abuse, even torture. One girl I taught was raped by her father and her uncle for years. Her uncle moved out of the country and her father is in prison. The situation has been resolved legally, but she is still facing years and years of psychological problems. So, to end my rambling ... the creepiest thing about my profession that we don't talk about is how many of our students are messed up and facing years of therapy because of things beyond their control. I wish I never knew this, but I was a hairdresser for a while, and at one point was working in a not-so-good area. I had just started at this new salon, and the owner warned me to watch out for an older man who would come in after a young girl. That in and of itself was kind of strange, but nothing too jarring. It's also important that we had almost no staff. Do I work many 6-7 hour shifts by myself? Well, one day a young woman, maybe 25 years old, came in, and an older man behind her, who said absolutely nothing. I took her to the chair, and like everyone else, asked her what she wanted. She pulled me close to her and said that man there thinks I'm getting my head shaved. He gave me $100, but just trim it. I look back at the man, and there he was, starting to masturbate in the corner. I told him to leave and called the police. The girl started crying in the chair. It was by far the creepiest thing I've seen. I never knew people had fetishes like that. I wish I never knew the amount of teachers who sleep with students. Every school I've been at there has been a story of Mr. So-and-so got fired for having sex with one of the students a few years back. I've talked to teachers who make remarks about 15-year-old girls' bodies that would be embarrassing to retell. I've heard rumors of students who get a little unwanted attention from some teachers. Improper stuff happens far more than you hear about on the news. This isn't necessarily creepy, but unsettling. I used to work in the travel industry. You'd be surprised at how many people seriously injure themselves or even die while on vacation. People tend to think they're invincible when they're abroad. Spoiler alert, you are not. Buy travel insurance. Patients' perception of their doctors is almost entirely based on our people's skills, communication, but this does not correlate very well to the quality of our medical decision-making. The reality is that there is a huge range within the medical community as far as motivation to learn and improve, being up to date with the latest research, etc., and sometimes friendly doctors are terrible decision-makers. Likewise, some have no people skills to speak of, but are some of the smartest and hardest working people on the planet. The best way to assess your doctor's decision-making is to go off the recommendations of other doctors, but even that is not 100% reliable because a lot of us are hesitant to publicly criticize our colleagues in education as an administrator. The reality of the frequency of child sexual assault or child abuse and lasting trauma resulting from it is enough to make you drink. It is so shocking the level of incompetence in parents. This is across both private schools, well-off demographics and high-needs, high-poverty districts. It is really hard to come to school each day and mask positivity some days. The amount of dead bodies you have to deal with, walking on. Property management for 5 communities with 2,400 people. 95% college students, 60% of those in high-stress, high-octane majors. I've walked into 4 suicides in 5 months, and these have been people I've gotten to know, toured, worked with to cater to interests. I couldn't imagine it was going to be like this, but I probably should. I'd cow to fix any of it, but it makes for a hard time now and again. I work in TV news and some viewers can be very creepy. People subconsciously feel like they know us, because they see us every day, in their homes. Some of the mail my co-workers receive is so questionable. Like one guy, a well-known and beloved weatherman, regularly gets postcards from the same dude that hates him and berates him. Another guy acts as if he actually knows one of our weekend anchors, in his letters talking about how they used to go to various concerts together. Nope. Once I opened a package with all these random objects, Band-Aids, Lays, a pair of socks, conversation hearts, and 5 valentines each detailing how the person would storm the building. Once I did a story vaguely related to vaping and within minutes a guy tracked down my personal Facebook and sent me 3 videos cussing me out and a long rant about how I was a pissant whore and a fucking moron.